Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first Cool Politics Cafe of Democracy Works Foundation. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Brand SA and Baseline, for making this event possible. Thank you very much.
It is an even greater pleasure and honor to finally see to come to fruition the Cool Politics Cafe, a partnership of Brand South Africa and Baseline. The objective of Cool Politics Cafe, which is one of the core objectives of Democracy Works Foundation, is to deepen democratic culture and to deepen nation and strengthen nation building, but also to celebrate some of the achievements of democracy in South Africa. And I think now in particular this year, 25 years into democracy, I think this Cool Politics Cafe comes at a good time to celebrate some of the accomplishments of democracy.
I would like very much to express Brand South Africa's support and collaboration and hope and aspirations that this type of platform will grow to reflect the various voices, as diverse as they are, in this country. And it's probably the most opportune time to host such a type of dialogue with this stakeholder, Democracy Works in particular, it being Africa Month, because as we know, the history of South Africa, for us to be sitting at 25 years of democracy today, is largely framed by contributions of people through their arts and their talent and their advocacy.
But the thing that's important, that usually drives whether this democracy works or not, is whether we have a shared sense of unity as a country, as a continent. And that's usually shaped by something else. That's shaped by people's values, that's shaped by people's belief systems. We talk about the idea of epistemology, so what's shaping how people understand the world and themselves. And I think music is a key part of that, the arts broadly, but we're hoping in this conversation we really get a sense of what's the opportunity that's there in terms of the arts and music, in terms of really getting us to be focused and have a shared sense of unity as a country and as a continent. So thank you very much for joining us.
If we can use these platforms as part of our education process, because if we don't take it to the kids at schools, we will always remain this audience that is supposedly intellectual and ready to understand what democracy is. Because if you don't teach the subject matter at a very tender age, how do we then expect the young children to grow up understanding what democracy is and how we should engage with it? So I am grateful that you brought us adults who are supposed to be understanding what this is about. But I think most importantly, let's take it down to the kids at the schools.
Also to say that then as government, we remain committed to the processes that are in place with our National Development Plan, and also just looking into the 6th administration to say that what are we going to do for the next 5 years between 2019 and 2024. And I had wanted to end with a provocative kind of like question as well, to say that, I mean, what is our role as South Africa in terms of the beacon of hope where democracy is concerned, to say that what is our role in the region, in SADC, what is our role in Africa to ensure that we have those constitutional and democratic dispensations that would ensure that people are comfortable with where they are and are able to express themselves the way that they'd like to. What is the role of the African peer review mechanism? I think some people have given up on it, but we cannot, because of the structures we've put in place, and that we need to make sure that they work for us. And to say that we are committed as well to the African Union and its protocols, your African People's Rights Convention, and also the Agenda 2063. Thank you.
Thank you.
When you become a figure in society, whatever figure you become, whether it's in politics or music, you have to take certain responsibilities because people are looking up to you. And especially when you've got young people that are looking up to you. So if you want to become a pop star, then there are certain responsibilities that come with it. And social cohesion is one of them if you specifically living in South Africa, and you need to take on that responsibility. And I think that government's doing a damn good job of pushing hard for social cohesion. We do have a lot of musicians that are doing it as well. And I think we just got to keep at it until, as I was talking about, the centre getting bigger and stronger, and the left and right getting smaller, until we can get to that stable space. And I think musicians will play a massively important role in making that process work.
Democracy is like. And when it came to music, music played a huge role in bringing everyone together. Let's just start with communities here in South Africa. Angolan communities, we missed home. We didn't know what was happening at home. And then the Angolan artists, through music, would tell us what is happening back home. So that was a way of us just going like, okay, things are still bad here, things are good here. Music is what would help us kind of just hold on, things are changing, not really changing, this is what's going on. Music did that. And then when it came to South Africa, I remember my dad, he would listen to you, Masekela, Miriam Makeba, and he explained what South African was because of that music. Before I could even understand English, because Portuguese is my first language, I already knew that this artist existed and they lived in this country, and this is what the country was going through.
If you look at indicators on freedom globally, roughly only 45% of the world population can actually be classified as people who live in free societies. Now, of course, freedom means different things. Democracy is expressed in different ways, in different forms of constitutions. So it's a bit problematical. However, I think it's very important for us as South Africa, but also as an African society, to recognize the fact that freedom is not automatic. And freedom is also not a luxury. And I think that's where the name Democracy Works also works for me. And I like the description earlier. It's something you have to work at. It's a constant construction process. It's also a process sometimes of destroying things, you know, not in a bad way, but to disassemble, to remake. And I think that's the story, the journey of South Africa.
So I'm hoping that this being Africa Day, which I think is the greatest expression of Afro-optimism, where we reflect on ourselves and we see the beauty of who we are as Africans and what we can contribute, that as we discuss these challenges, as we look at and reflect on the journey that we are traveling, that we will take some time to reflect on that which makes us optimistic as well, not just that which makes us sit back and want to despond.
This idea that if we say we're serious about young people, we're saying it's the biggest voting constituency, but we don't take their political aspirations seriously. We don't create space for them. Why are we surprised that they didn't turn up? So we had 9 million people that didn't vote. The ANC got 10 million votes. So if everybody that didn't vote voted for one party, the DA would be nowhere, right? And that's a staggering number. One of the worst statistics I've seen with the IEC is that 18 to 19-year-olds, first-time voters, our registration statistic is 18%. 18% of first-time voters registered. And I think it calls us to question, is this democracy still serving us? Is this form of democracy still something that we should opt into? And what happens in the next election, where there are more young people coming in, where your first-time voters are now your second-time voters who are probably not going to vote, where you have 48 parties but you can't pick one?
Bottom line is we need to address the electoral system, and because if we don't fix that, we will continue to have these contradictions. And I am saying even the concerns that we are raising is that if you have a constituency-based system, you at least the people will then have somebody that they know who lives in the community, and somebody that they can identify with, and somebody that they can have a right to recall. The reason why in South Africa it's very difficult to recall is because we are in this perpetual state of elections. I'm not sure if you realize that. Yeah. If you are not having a provincial and national elections, you are having local government elections. If you are not having local government elections, you are having the ruling party elections. And all these elections, in other words, the whole 5 years, everybody is in the election mode.
No, I just wanted to say, I think Pearl made a very important point about the type of young people that are entering into public office. And I think it's a very fair point, and it's something that we need to be very well cognizant of moving forward, especially not necessarily for this administration, but for the next. And one of the things what I would like to do is really have a solid, proper mentorship system of young people, so that come the next administration, we mustn't now be looking for young people. There must be so many young, capacitated people that it becomes the norm to have young people involved. And I think you're quite right, it's not just about those who went to universities. But I want to address the idea of political indifference, partisan indifference, etc. That's exactly what I meant, that you don't have to be partisan to be involved in society or to be an active citizen in society. In fact, I mean, there's living, breathing proof that we all can't be involved in party politics. But for me, the bigger message to young people is to get involved and is to not have this sort of individual kind of self-interest, and to say, well, there's a much greater aspect and context that we really need to get involved in.
What I know Caribbean nationals want in when we're rethinking our gaze and where we're going to get information from, and new methodologies around altering how we do things within our society, which requires a diaspora continent engagement. A lot of that is facilitating more exchanges between, let's say, the Caribbean and Africa. The vibrancy that I see here around activism and various forms of activism would do well in Caribbean spaces when we translate, when the youth translate how we want to proceed. If we don't want to do it the way the African American community is doing it, we can choose to do it the way it's being done in South Africa. And so for me, the struggle around developing nationhood requires constant conversation like this. But in another space where the conversations not happening the same way, or not happening at all, the conversations across the ocean would really make a difference in our spaces.
Because, you know, foreign policy is not only the government, but it's business, civil society, it's us as individuals, the way we carry ourselves, the way we engage in other countries. You know, we carry South Africa, we carry the foreign policy. So if you really behave democratically, you know, it sets the example and so on. It's like this agency. So it's not just the state, but us as individuals. So really, we're looking forward for the kind of partnership, you know, Brand South Africa, but also with the state, because it's Democracy Works Foundation. The state, we want to democratize the state, civil society, capacity, active citizenship. So really it's almost like a broad front for democracy.